etwas Verdächtiges beobachtet haben. Etwa das himbeerfarbene Auto des Tatverdächtigen gesehen haben oder vielleicht auch Aktionen von Vergraben, Verstecken beobachtet haben.
Berlin, Germany, February 2019. A 15-year-old girl vanished into the cold morning mist, right inside a relative's home.
Und das möchte man jetzt heute angehen. Gestern waren ja bereits 115 Ermittlungsbeamte hier vor Ort und haben das komplette Grundstück durchsucht, durchkämmt, das Wohnhaus der Oma des Schwagers durchsucht, um eben noch Hinweise zu finden, etwa.
Rebecca was born on September 21st, 2003, in Berlin, the youngest daughter of Brigitte and Bernd Reusch. She had two older sisters, Vivian, 23, and Jessica, 27. Rebecca attended Walter Gropius Schule in the Neukölln district, where she transferred after 7th grade due to unpleasant experiences at her previous school. Friends described her as cheerful, friendly, and with a modern sense of fashion. Yet over time, behind that bright smile was a depth of emotion few ever noticed. At 15, Rebecca began facing the struggles of adolescence, confusion about the future, fear of not being good enough, and the invisible pressure to prove herself among her peers. Her close friends later revealed that she had once texted them saying she felt exhausted, drained, and at times could not find meaning in life. Even so, she tried to appear happy around her family, who always saw her as an energetic, sweet, and lively girl. Rebecca's parents later shared that they had no idea their daughter was experiencing an emotional crisis. As to them, she was always their smiling, dream-filled little girl. On the evening of February 17th, 2019, Berlin was still wrapped in the familiar chill of winter. But for Rebecca Reusch, it was simply a warm night spent with her beloved sister. She went to visit Jessica and her family in the Berlin-Britz area, just about a 10-minute drive from her home. Rebecca had always been close to Jessica and especially loved playing with her little niece, who was not yet 2 years old, a simple joy that helped her forget her worries about school and the future for a while. That day, the two sisters decided to spend the whole evening together, just like when they were kids, eating pizza, listening to music, and playing computer games. The house was filled with laughter and a sense of peace. Jessica's husband, Florian, a chef at a hotel, was away attending a company party, leaving the sisters to enjoy a rare evening alone together. Around 8 p.m., Rebecca picked up her phone and sent a short message, "Okay," to her cousin Elfie. It seemed like a meaningless text, just a polite reply between relatives. But no one knew that it would be the last confirmed sign that Rebecca was still safe. After midnight, the small house in Berlin-Britz slowly fell into silence. Jessica went upstairs to her bedroom, while Rebecca spread a soft blanket over the couch in the living room, where she would spend the night. In the early hours of the morning, Florian, Jessica's husband, returned home from the company party. He quietly went upstairs, lay down beside his wife, and quickly fell asleep. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Around 7 a.m., Jessica woke up, got her daughter ready, and hurried out of the house to drop the little girl off at daycare before heading to work. She didn't glance toward the living room, where Rebecca was sleeping, assuming her younger sister was still fast asleep. Around 7:15 a.m., Brigitte, Rebecca's mother, called to make sure her daughter hadn't overslept. The phone rang, but only the voicemail answered. Sensing something unusual, she immediately called Jessica. When her eldest daughter mentioned that Rebecca didn't have to be at school until 9:50 a.m., Brigitte felt relieved, assuming the girl was probably still sleeping in after a long night. at 7:46 a.m. Rebecca Reusch's phone connected for the last time to the Wi-Fi router in her sister's home in Berlin-Britz, the final digital trace she ever left behind. After that, all communication went silent. At 8:25 a.m., Brigitte tried calling her daughter again, but once more, all she heard was the cold sound of the voicemail. A mother's intuition began to stir uneasily within her. She knew that Florian, Jessica's husband, was still home after his company party the night before, so she called him to ask whether Rebecca was still sleeping or had already left. The call was cut off midway. A few minutes later, Florian called back, but this time, Brigitte missed the call. When they finally managed to speak, she asked him to check the living room where Rebecca had slept the previous night. Florian walked in, looked around the room, then returned with words that sent chills down Brigitte's spine. Rebecca isn't here anymore. In that instant, confusion and fear began to spread through the entire family. At 8:42 a.m., Brigitte sent her daughter a short but anxious message. "Good morning, sweetheart. I hope you made it to school on time. I can't get in touch with you." From this point on, everything began to grow uncertain and difficult to explain. At first, it was believed that the message, "Okay, Rebecca Reusch," sent to her cousin Elfie on the evening of February 17th was her final communication with the outside world. However, during the investigation, an unexpected detail surfaced that completely altered the timeline. A close friend of Rebecca's testified that she had received a photo from Rebecca via Snapchat on the morning of February 18th, 2019, just a few hours after all other communication had gone silent. In the photo, Rebecca was wearing a gray BTS hoodie, ripped jeans, black sneakers, and a soft pink faux fur jacket. The same outfit later confirmed to have disappeared with her. The background appeared to be a hallway or a brightly lit room with natural light. Police considered this testimony credible because Snapchat has a specific feature: if two users exchange photos for 3 consecutive days, a 3-flame icon appears beside the username, and this only works for photos taken directly within the app, not ones uploaded from the gallery. This meant Rebecca had indeed taken that photo herself on that very morning. February 18th, 2019 passed in a quiet unease, and no one in the Reusch family could have imagined that it would mark the beginning of Rebecca's mysterious disappearance. She never showed up at school, and throughout the morning, no one received any messages or calls from her. At first, everyone assumed Rebecca might be spending time with friends, or had simply forgotten to charge her phone. But when the clock struck 4 p.m., the silence began to feel frightening. Elfie, Rebecca's cousin, called a friend named Eileen to ask if she knew where Rebecca was. Eileen said no, and later, in an interview, she shared that she hadn't been worried at the time, since the two had different schedules, and it wasn't unusual for them not to see each other for a day. But Rebecca never appeared again. As evening fell, small but troubling clues began to emerge. Rebecca's personal belongings, the outfit seen in her Snapchat photo, her handbag, wallet, pink instant camera, and a purple fleece blanket from Jessica's house, were all missing. Her mother, Brigitte Reusch, felt something was terribly wrong. By Monday night, she officially contacted the Berlin police, marking the start of a large-scale search that would last for months.
Februar 2019. Die damals 15-jährige Rebecca verschwindet angeblich spurlos aus dem Haus ihres Schwagers. Ihr Telefon ist abgestellt.
On the morning of Tuesday, February 19th, 2019, the atmosphere in Berlin-Britz grew heavier than ever. After a nearly sleepless night, the Reusch family began to act. They printed hundreds of flyers with Rebecca's photo, walking through streets, train stations, stores, and schools, searching for anyone who might have seen her. A public appeal was posted on Facebook, spreading rapidly and gathering thousands of shares within just a few hours. 3 days later, on February 21st, 2019, the disappearance of the 15-year-old girl became widely known across Germany. Rebecca's image, a young girl with a gentle smile and bright, innocent eyes, appeared on television broadcasts and newspaper front pages nationwide. The Berlin police called on the public for help, urging anyone with information to come forward. But hope quickly gave way to despair. On February 26th, Jessica and some friends searched the Rudo area, a suburb not far from her home, but found nothing. The next day, a police helicopter swept over the entire Britz district, especially the nearby parks, yet the results remained empty-handed. By mid-March, the search expanded beyond Berlin. On March 16th, police focused their efforts along the A12 highway, the route leading toward Poland, and 2 days later, they combed through Lake Herzberger See in the state of Brandenburg. Cadaver dogs trained to detect decomposition traces were placed on boats to scan the lake's surface, working alongside professional divers. But after hours of tense searching, no sign of Rebecca was found. Police returned to the site twice more, on March 25th, and again on April 10th and 11th, 2019, using the same methods, with the same determination. But the outcome remained absolute silence.
Ja, heute Morgen ist es noch relativ ruhig hier im Ort, aber schon nach wenigen Stunden möchte die Polizei ihre Suche jetzt wieder fortsetzen. Aber anders als gestern. Sie möchte heute Flugblätter verteilen und mit Anwohnern und Nachbarn ins Gespräch kommen, ob die vielleicht am Tag von Rebeccas Verschwinden etwas Verdächtiges beobachtet haben. Etwa das himbeerfarbene Auto des Tatverdächtigen gesehen haben oder vielleicht auch Aktionen von Vergraben, Verstecken beobachtet haben. Und das möchte man jetzt heute angehen. Gestern waren ja bereits 115 Ermittlungsbeamte hier vor Ort und haben das komplette Grundstück durchsucht, durchkämmt, das Wohnhaus der Oma des Schwagers durchsucht, um eben noch Hinweise zu finden, etwa persönliche Gegenstände von Rebecca oder gar ihre Leiche.
Vielleicht kannst du uns da noch mal ein bisschen mehr an die Hand nehmen. Warum ist man denn überhaupt jetzt auf die Idee gekommen, dieser möglichen Spur zu folgen? Was hat da jetzt den Ausschlag gegeben?
Die Polizei hat Hinweise, dass der Tatverdächtige am Tag von Rebeccas Verschwinden hier in Brandenburg gewesen sein soll. Videoüberwachungskameras an den Autobahnen haben nämlich sein Kennzeichen registriert. Das wusste man auch schon damals. Damals haben die Ermittler aber eben nicht das Wohnhaus seiner Oma durchsucht, zu dem der Tatverdächtige ja uneingeschränkten Zutritt hatte. Und das hat man eben jetzt gestern nachgeholt. Die Ermittler haben auch immer wieder den ganzen Tag über, wir waren ja hier vor Ort, Gegenstände aus dem Haus getragen, mal in einer Tüte, mal in einer Plastikbox. Ob die dann wirklich sachdienlich sind, das muss jetzt ausgewertet werden. Parallel dazu sind die Polizeibeamten eben heute dann vor Ort, um nochmal mit Anwohnern und Nachbarn zu sprechen.
By mid-April 2019, the disappearance of Rebecca Reusch had spread beyond Germany's borders. On April 14th, a man reported seeing a girl who looked very much like Rebecca in Krakow, Poland. This clue immediately prompted German authorities to expand their investigation. By the end of that month, they contacted Polish investigators and coordinated a search in the area described by the witness. However, the effort quickly reached a dead end. No trace, no second witness, and no camera footage of the girl in question. It was as if Rebecca had vanished from the face of the earth. leaving behind no sign that she was still alive. As the public grew increasingly impatient, the Berlin police maintained an unusual silence. They released no updates, shared no details with the media, and provided no insight into their direction of investigation. Many believed this was a deliberate investigative strategy meant to protect sensitive information. Yet, as the search stalled, a new controversy erupted, not about suspects or evidence, but about the photo used by police in their public appeals. According to Rebecca's mother, Rebecca Reusch, the picture had been taken from Rebecca's personal Instagram account, since the family no longer had any recent photos of her. In that image, Rebecca appeared with shoulder-length hair and softly curled bangs, a look that differed from how she actually appeared at the time of her disappearance. This discrepancy led many to question whether the image used in the search could have made it harder for potential witnesses to recognize her in person. Although it seemed like a minor detail, it sparked widespread public debate across Germany, with many questioning whether the case was truly being investigated with the care and accuracy it deserved. Throughout the investigation into the mysterious disappearance of Rebecca Reusch, police focused on 3 individuals believed to be directly connected: Florian, Jessica's husband; Max, an acquaintance from the internet; and Lucas, a close friend and classmate of Rebecca's. Among the 3, Max was the first to be investigated and quickly ruled out as a suspect. Max was not a real-life friend of Rebecca's, but rather someone she knew online. They met through social media and often chatted about music, sports, and school life. Max was around the same age as Rebecca, and according to Rebecca Reusch, she had initially thought her daughter might have arranged to meet him that morning, a theory that seemed plausible in the early days of the search. Rebecca's cousin Elfie mentioned that she had thought Max was an amateur soccer player, but when she checked Rebecca's Snapchat account, she found nothing unusual. Police soon traced Max's real identity, questioned him, and ruled him out entirely, as there was no evidence or indication linking him to the case. However, this information was not made public right away, leading to a wave of speculation online. Many internet detectives believed the police were overlooking a crucial lead, so they began organizing their own search groups, tracking Max's social media accounts, and even exposing his personal information online. Just a few days after Rebecca disappeared, Max deleted his entire Snapchat account, an action that made the public even more suspicious of him. Many believed he was covering his tracks, a theory that spread like wildfire. In reality, Max did it out of fear. He was terrified that being associated with such a serious case could completely destroy his life. During the investigation, journalists Lena Neithammer and Miriam Arts managed to track down Max. The young man once believed to have known Rebecca online. When they approached him and persuaded him to share his story, the truth gradually came to light. In the interview, Max admitted that he and Rebecca had not been in contact for 6 months before she disappeared. Prior to that, their relationship had been limited to chatting and befriending each other online, a typical connection between teenagers who shared interests in music and movies. Over time, the interaction faded, and they eventually stopped communicating altogether. This finding matched perfectly with what Berlin police had already discovered in Rebecca's online data, though investigators chose not to release the details publicly to avoid fueling misunderstandings. With that clear evidence, Max was officially ruled out as a suspect. However, another name suddenly came under scrutiny: Lucas, a close classmate of Rebecca's. According to several classmates, the two had a minor argument just a few days before she went missing. Lucas had reportedly pulled a hat off Rebecca's head, causing a small scratch on her forehead an impulsive act of youthful mischief, but one that drew attention. After hearing about the incident, Rebecca's mother, Brigitte, went to the school to speak with Lucas directly. In the early stages of the investigation, when every lead had gone cold, Rebecca's parents briefly suspected that Lucas might somehow be involved, simply because there was no one else to question. However, after being interviewed, Lucas fully cooperated with investigators, providing his schedule and witnesses who confirmed he had been at school at the time of Rebecca's disappearance. Police verified his statements with movement data and independent witnesses, ultimately ruling out any possibility of his involvement. Throughout the entire investigation, the name that drew the most public attention was Florian R., Jessica's husband and the last known person to have been in the same house with Rebecca Reusch on the night she disappeared. At the time, Florian was 33 years old and worked as a chef at a hotel in central Berlin. Colleagues described him as quiet and reserved, though at times somewhat short-tempered and overly secretive. He was not entirely unknown to the police. Back in 2015, he had been arrested for bringing illegal fireworks from Poland into Germany, a violation of public safety regulations that resulted in a €225 fine and an entry in administrative records. Although it was a minor offense, that detail later made it easier for investigators to identify him when Rebecca went missing. Florian quickly became the primary suspect for three main reasons. He was the last person to have seen Rebecca. His statements conflicted with phone data, and he had made a suspicious driving trip shortly after her disappearance. In his testimony, Florian stated that after returning home from the company party in the early hours of February 18th, he was exhausted and went straight to bed. However, data extracted from his phone told a different story. It showed activity between 6 and 8 a.m., including messages sent and apps opened, precisely during the same time window when Rebecca's phone connected to the home Wi-Fi for the last time. This led police to believe that he hadn't actually been asleep, but was awake while Rebecca was still downstairs. When traffic camera data was cross-checked, suspicions deepened even further. The automated system on the A12 highway, the route connecting Berlin to the Polish border, recorded the license plate of Florian's red Renault Twingo twice on 2 consecutive days.
Denn kurz danach wurde das Kennzeichen des Twingos hier auf der A12 erfasst, am Steuer vermutlich der Schwager. Von da dauert es ca. 30 Minuten bis nach Lindenberg zum Grundstück der Großeltern des Verdächtigen.
The first trip took place early in the morning on February 18th, just a few hours after Rebecca disappeared, and the second late at night on February 19th at 10:39 p.m., both heading in the same direction toward Frankfurt, Oder. Strangely, the car was never captured by the next highway camera, indicating that Florian had exited the A12 before reaching the border, turning instead into the forested region of Brandenburg, an area filled with secluded woods, lakes, and open fields. Police believed these trips were far from coincidental. When questioned, Florian refused to explain his destination, offering only a brief response. It was personal business. His silence deepened suspicions that he was hiding something. Investigators theorized that he might have left home carrying the missing purple fleece blanket from Jessica's house, the same one that matched the description of the blanket Rebecca was believed to have taken that morning. There was no confession, no direct evidence, only fragments of data and a stretch of time that could not be accounted for. Gradually, Florian became the central figure of national attention, both a family member and the mysterious man everyone wanted answers from. What was he hiding on those 2 drives? And were they somehow connected to the disappearance of Rebecca Reusch? After all suspicions turned toward Florian R., Rebecca's father, Bernd Reusch, spoke publicly in an interview with Bild, saying that Florian's trips on the A12 highway might have been related to some personal matter unknown to him. Looking directly into the camera, he pleaded, "Florian, please tell the truth so the search can move in the right direction. We need to find Becky." Shortly after, an independent journalist emailed Bernd, suggesting that Florian might have been involved with illegal substances and warning that if he did not respond, the story would be published. Bernd did not reply in time, and the article was released, sparking widespread rumors on social media that Florian had driven toward Poland because of those substances. Under intense public pressure, Vivian Reusch, Rebecca's sister, spoke out and pleaded with the public to stop attacking her brother-in-law. "Please, stop this witch hunt. He's a kind person." Still, the pressure only grew stronger. 10 days after Rebecca's disappearance, Florian was arrested for the first time but released a day later due to lack of evidence. On March 4, 2019, he was arrested again and taken into custody, a turning point in the investigation, as police officially began treating the case as a serious criminal matter rather than a simple missing person case. On March 6, 2019, the disappearance of Rebecca Reusch officially entered an entirely new phase when Michael Hoffman, the lead investigator for the Berlin police, appeared on the popular German investigative television program Aktenzeichen. Before millions of viewers, he made a statement that shocked the entire country. "We now believe this is a serious case. The suspicion toward the brother-in-law has been reinforced. However, he remains silent." This was the first time police publicly confirmed that they no longer considered it a simple missing person case but a serious criminal investigation, with Florian R. becoming the official prime suspect. Hoffman also revealed a crucial new detail. On the day Rebecca disappeared, and the following day, Florian had been captured on camera driving along the A12 highway toward Frankfurt, Oder, the route leading to the Polish border, something that had previously only been rumored. Police hoped that by disclosing this information, they could locate potential witnesses who might have seen his red Renault Twingo during that time. To increase the chances of identification, they also released official images of Florian to the media. However, this move quickly stirred controversy. The photos used by the police were taken while he was in custody, unshaven, disheveled, and visibly exhausted, making him look very different from his usual appearance. Even if someone had actually seen him on the road, the chances of recognizing him accurately were almost zero. The nationwide release of Florian R. Strasser's photos quickly ignited a wave of intense controversy. Many argued that the police had overstepped their authority, as at that time, and even to this day, there was no conclusive evidence proving he was responsible for any wrongdoing. Although he was only being held for investigation, the public began to view him as though he had already been found guilty. Under German law, the image of a person in custody may only be made public if there is strong evidence to support a conviction or if the person is on the run and officially wanted by authorities. Florian's situation fit neither of these conditions, and the police's decision to release his image was seen as an unprecedented move in the history of German justice. 2 weeks later, Florian was released from pretrial detention after an investigating judge ruled that, based on the current state of evidence, there are insufficient grounds for urgent suspicion of a criminal offense. However, the Berlin Public Prosecutor's Office maintained a different stance. Spokesman Martin Steltner stated that they believed Rebecca had not left the house in Britz alive, and all available traces indicated that a tragedy had occurred there. At the same time, police revealed a controversial detail. Data from Florian's computer showed that he had accessed adult content after returning home from the company party. Based on this sequence of events, investigators developed their working theory that Florian returned home in the early hours of February 18th, stayed up alone, viewed explicit material, and then a serious incident occurred involving Rebecca. According to this hypothesis, he allegedly wrapped her in the missing purple fleece blanket from Jessica's house, placed her in his red Renault Twingo, and drove along the A12 highway toward Poland to dispose of the evidence. Investigators argued that Florian's 2 consecutive trips along the same route were difficult to explain logically, especially since he refused to disclose his reason for traveling. However, to this day, no physical evidence, no blood, no fingerprints, no DNA has ever been found to support this theory. This leaves the case suspended in a gray area between speculation and truth, while Florian remains at the center of one of the most mysterious and hotly debated criminal cases in modern German history. Amid the theories and controversies surrounding the disappearance of Rebecca Reusch, police received numerous witness statements in hopes of uncovering new leads, though most only made the picture even more confusing. One of the most notable witnesses was Mrs. Müller, who lived on Moreweg Street, just about 330 feet from Jessica and Florian's home. She claimed that on the morning of February 18, 2019, she had left work early and was walking home when she saw a tall girl with loose hair, wearing a pink faux fur jacket and carrying a purple fleece blanket, walking in the opposite direction, familiar with Rebecca's face. She greeted her, but the girl only responded with a quick, tense glance. Mrs. Müller recalled the time clearly, between 11 and 11:30 a.m., because she arrived home just before the clock struck noon. When she heard about the disappearance a few days later, she immediately contacted police, convinced that the person she saw was Rebecca. However, she was never called back, leaving her feeling ignored. Even so, Mrs. Müller remained adamant that the girl she saw was indeed Rebecca, noting that she remembered the exact date because she had a training session at her company that day. The only detail that cast doubt on her testimony was her mention that it had rained lightly earlier, while official weather data confirmed there had been no rainfall on either February 17th or 18th. Another witness, Mrs. Zementa, stated that she saw Rebecca later that same evening at the Alt-Buckow bus stop. She said she was 100% certain because the girl was standing right behind her, talking on the phone, and when the bus arrived, she didn't get on. What made Mrs. Zementa's testimony stand out was that she already knew Rebecca. The girl had once cheered alongside her sister Jessica at local competitions. In addition, a third witness claimed to have seen Rebecca on bus route 171 at around 7:30 a.m. on February 18th, carrying a purple blanket and wearing a pink jacket, matching the description from her final Snapchat photo. In December 2020, nearly 2 years after Rebecca Reusch's disappearance, a new voice unexpectedly emerged amid the long-standing cloud of suspicion surrounding Florian R., that of his younger sister, Sarah, who broke her silence for the first time on the podcast, Im Dunkeln. At the time, Sarah was 21 years old, and she admitted that she had cut off contact with her family for quite some time before deciding to share her story. Perhaps that distance gave her the clarity and courage to speak about things she had never dared to say before. In the interview, Sarah described her family's complicated childhood, one overshadowed by unhappy memories. She revealed that she and Florian had a younger brother, and before he was born, the family had lived in the Neukölln district of Berlin. Later, they moved to Lichtenberg, but Florian refused to change schools, choosing to continue at his high school in Neukölln before eventually training to become a chef. According to Sarah, their childhood was far from easy. She said their father had been violent at home, and those years left her with lasting fear and emotional scars. Because of that, she no longer considered him an important part of her life. Sarah recounted that it was during those dark years that a special bond formed between her and Florian. They had once been very close, leaning on each other to get through a childhood filled with pain. However, as they grew older, Florian moved out to continue studying at his old school, and the distance between them gradually widened. She admitted that she had been a troubled kid, eventually placed in a supervised facility for adolescents from difficult backgrounds, where she began therapy at the age of 16. Sometime later, she moved into her own place, started building an independent life, and slowly regained stability. During that period, Florian kept in touch, and the two began to reconnect. Still, Sarah said she initially struggled to accept Florian's girlfriend, Jessica, because she felt her future sister-in-law had changed the dynamic between the siblings. But over time, she came to see that Jessica was kind, genuinely loved Florian, and eventually accepted them as a harmonious couple who, on the surface, seemed as ordinary as anyone else. When asked about the morning of February 18, 2019, Sarah, the younger sister of Florian R, spoke cautiously, as though afraid that anything she said might get her brother into deeper trouble. In her interview on the podcast, Unsolved, she revealed that Florian had once told her his drive on the A12 highway the day Rebecca disappeared was actually connected to illegal substances. According to Sarah, her brother had a shady side job, specifically transporting harmful materials across the Polish border. However, she didn't believe he was working for any organization or gang. Rather, she thought he drove the goods himself for personal reasons. Still, Sarah emphasized that this was only what Florian had told her. There was no evidence, and she did not believe her brother was a bad person, even though it was clear he was hiding something she couldn't fully understand. Beyond that account, Sarah did not disclose any new details about the case, but her story about their childhood and family dynamic helped the public gain a deeper understanding of Florian's character and mindset. Meanwhile, police received another crucial lead. An anonymous witness reported that on February 18th, he had seen a strawberry-red Renault Twingo parked deep inside a forest near Kummersdorf, south of the A12 highway, the same route where Florian's car had been captured by traffic cameras. This information was later supported by the testimony of a female rider, who said that she and a friend were horseback riding in that forest on the same day when they suddenly encountered a man wearing a red baseball cap emerging from the woods near a leaving residential area sign. Upon noticing the two riders, the man abruptly turned around and ran back into the forest, an odd behavior that caught their attention, based on the matching time and location in both accounts. Police launched a large-scale search in the Brandenburg forest. Dozens of officers, 6 cadaver dogs trained to detect traces of decomposition, and a surveillance helicopter were deployed to sweep every square yard of ground. Search teams combed through trails, wooden cabins, and nearby lakes for 3 consecutive days, but no trace of Rebecca. Florian, or the strawberry-red car, was ever found. In the podcast Im Dunkeln, in addition to the testimony of Florian R, his sister Sarah, 2 of his former girlfriends also came forward to share personal stories from their past relationships with him. However, the journalists emphasized that these statements were only considered anecdotal, as they could not be fully verified and might contain potential bias or conflicting motives. The first, Angie, said that her relationship with Florian took place when they were both very young and that he was one of her first loves. She claimed that Florian had been controlling and treated her poorly, once locking her in a room because he didn't want her going shopping, showing excessive jealousy while repeatedly being unfaithful. Angie admitted that at the time she was naive and thought those behaviors were signs of love, not realizing how much they were hurting her. To verify her account, the reporters interviewed Angie's stepsister, who also dated Florian later on. She provided a completely different perspective, describing him as caring, protective, and never violent. She said that during one party, when she had too much to drink, Florian was the one who took her home safely and looked after her, adding that her stepsister tended to exaggerate things due to personal conflicts. However, another former girlfriend of Florian supported Angie's version, saying that he had once hit her hard enough to leave bruises, though she too believed it was just part of love at the time and never went to the police. Additionally, someone else recalled that during a gathering with friends, Florian had allegedly admitted while playing Spin the Bottle that he had once been violent toward a girlfriend, though no one had concrete proof. These conflicting stories made the portrait of Florian more complex and harder to define than ever. Some saw him as a jealous and controlling man, while others viewed him as a quiet person who sometimes became overprotective of those he loved. Although none of these claims were ever confirmed by evidence, they deepened public division and pushed the Rebecca Reusch case further into a vortex of doubt, where the line between truth, memory, and personal emotion grew more fragile than ever. Aside from the witness statements, the disappearance of Rebecca Reusch included another detail that stirred widespread curiosity. In early May 2019, a 29-year-old woman named Anna Catherine Ulbrich from Würselen, near Aachen, was walking her dog when she accidentally wandered into a forest less than 3 miles from her home. On her way back, she stumbled upon a purple blanket that looked identical in color and material to the one police had been searching for in connection with Rebecca's disappearance. Startled by her discovery, Anna Catherine wrote to her father, a retired criminal investigator, to ask his opinion. He replied that he too had noticed the same blanket while walking in that area, and even remembered seeing a gray sweater or some similar item inside a plastic bag next to it. The father and daughter immediately contacted the State Criminal Police Office, LKA, hoping this lead might help shed light on the mysterious case that had gripped Germany for months. However, the response from investigators left them deeply disappointed. Police told them that the blanket had no forensic value and was not worth examining further, feeling uneasy about that explanation. Anna Catherine returned to the forest 6 months later, and to her astonishment, the blanket was still there, partially decayed from the weather. She once again contacted the LKA, only to receive the same response. The lead was irrelevant to the case. Unable to understand why the police would ignore a potentially important piece of evidence, Anna Catherine decided to reach out directly to the Reusch family. She sent a private message to Vivian, Rebecca's younger sister, asking whether she should mail the blanket to Berlin, but she never received a reply. By the fall of 2020, when she returned to the forest once more, the blanket was gone. All that remained were a few stacked logs covering the spot where it had once lain, as if someone had deliberately cleared away every trace. Rebecca has now been missing for more than 6 years. 6 long years filled with pain and sorrow for her family, especially as one of their own has been regarded as the main suspect throughout that time. Yet, Rebecca's mother has never given up hope. She reaffirmed this recently in an interview with Bunta magazine, saying, "I'm her mother, and I can feel that she's still alive." Just as Bernd Reusch had spoken directly to Florian on camera 6 years earlier, urging him to tell the truth. Brigitte also addressed the person responsible during the interview. To the one who took our Becky away, please, search your heart, show compassion, and tell us where Becky is. More than 6 years have passed since the disappearance of Rebecca Reusch. 6 long years filled with pain, doubt, and fragile hope for her family. Especially as one of their own has remained the primary suspect throughout the entire investigation. Time has moved on, yet the pain remains unchanged, and the silence surrounding the case has trapped them in an endless cycle of unanswered questions. Still, amid that darkness of despair, Rebecca's mother, Brigitte Reusch, holds steadfast to her belief that her daughter is still alive. In a recent interview with Bunta magazine, she spoke with unwavering yet emotional conviction. "I'm her mother. I can feel that she's still alive. It was more than a mother's intuition. It was the last thread of hope keeping her moving forward in this never-ending search." Just as 6 years ago, Rebecca's father, Bernd Reusch, had looked straight into the television camera and publicly appealed to Florian, urging him to tell the truth so their daughter could be found. Brigitte has now done the same, though her words were directed to whoever is responsible for taking her daughter away, no matter who that person might be. With a trembling yet resolute voice, she said, "To the one who took our Becky away, please stop and reflect. Be compassionate and tell us where Becky is. We just want to know the truth." Her words echoed like both a plea and a mother's cry, and also as the voice of millions still following this case, holding on to the hope that someday the mystery of Rebecca Reusch will finally be solved. The story of Rebecca Reusch is not only a mysterious disappearance, but also a profound reminder of the fragility of youth, trust, and family. 6 years have passed, and although the truth remains hidden, the love of her parents, Bernd and Brigitte Reusch, continues to burn as a light that has never gone out. From this case, we learn that care and understanding within a family can sometimes save a life, and that we should never ignore the subtle signs of sadness, loneliness, or emotional struggle in the young people around us. Every case told in true crime documentary is not just a story of tragedy, but an invitation for reflection, a reminder that behind every number, every headline, there is a person, a life that was never completed. Thank you for watching today's story in True Crime Documentary. If you were moved by Rebecca's journey, please share this video, leave a comment in her memory, and don't forget to subscribe and click like to stay with us for more real-life stories, where each case is not only about crime, but also about preserving the memory of those who are gone. We'll see you in the next episode of True Crime Documentary, where together we continue the search for the truth behind the mysteries that remain unsolved.